Hello guys, and welcome you to my new video in the Middlegame Madness series. And today I'm going to talk about one of the most important thing in the chess, and that's going to be the position analysis. And from that we will talk about the candidate moves and the decision making. And in this game I will try to show you everything about that. That was my game. I was playing with the white pieces probably 3 years ago in a OTB game. And let's see what happened there. E4, C5, knight C3, knight C6. By the way, that was my favorite line against the Sicilian defense. When I was a child, sometimes I played the open Sicilian, the main lines, but after that I just get bored to memorize all of the variations, and then one of my grandmaster friend recommended this variation for me, so I started to play that, and I just love that. If my opponent plays d6, if black plays d6, then I can play a very good Grand Prix attack with f4, since the d pawn is already moved, so it's not a threat that he will play d5 later on, or at least he will lose time with that. And if black plays knight c6, then my favorite weapon was bishop b5. Of course, here you can also play f4 and transpose into a Grand Prix attack. But in this case, you have to calculate with that black didn't play d6 yet, so probably it's not that good like was in the previous line. So here I prefer the bishop b5 line, which I'm not pretty sure, but if I remember correctly, that's called the Tivyakov variation. And from that we will have some nice positions with long-term advantages, or we can also transpose into a good Grand Prix attack. Knight d4, and by the way, this is a very sound opening with white, so I can absolutely recommend to you if you struggle against the Sicilian defense. And in the other hand, because it's not that popular, then most of the black players just doesn't know how to play it properly, like it happened in the game. Knight d4, it's the best line, the main line. Bishop c4, and since I played this very long time ago, but if I remember well, the a6 line is the most critical line here, and we will see why. I will come back until here. I don't want to talk too much about the opening, but there are some nice tricks that I have to show. e6 happened in the game. Knight ge2, knight e7, and that is a very classical, very well-known trick for white that I wanted to use in the game, but I cannot because it's good only against the knight f6, and I will show you what's the difference between knight c6 and knight e7. It's very easy. If I castle, then here black can play knight c6, and the position is probably around even. So it's not forced for black to play d5 in this position, but if he plays knight f6 here and I castle, then most of the people play d5 here, and we can transpose into what I wanted to show you. So let's get back until here, and let's see what happens if black plays d5 instead of knight c6. We can take, black has to take, and there is an amazing sacrifice with knight d5. So it's the same if the knight is here or here, but we said that that the difference is if the opponent plays knight e7 instead of knight c6, knight f6, then he will have this option with knight c6. So probably that's the reason why the castle is not the best continuation for here, and why I decided to go for something else. So we have a nice juicy sacrifice here. Black has to accept, of course. We take the other knight, he has to take, and queen h5, and suddenly black finds himself in a very terrible situation, because now the d5 is hanging, the knight cannot move because the f7 is a checkmate rate. So black has to play bishop e6, and after that rook e1, and white just wins the game because everything is in a pin. The e6 is hanging because the king is in a pin by the queen. The d5 is also hanging. So for example, g6 would face to queen d5. For example, bishop e7 would face to rook e6. So the game is over here, and why I said that the best continuation, the best option for black is a6 in the third move. Then because if he could include this move here, for example, with white playing d3, for example, then if I remember well that he has something here. I'm not pretty sure, so I don't want to say something that doesn't stay. But that's the reason why people play, black players play a6 in the third move. But let's get back until here. I wanted to do that, but as I said here, black probably would play knight c6. So after the castle, so I went for knight d4 and tried to keep the positional advantage. He took it back with a pawn, knight e2, knight c6, d3, bishop e7, castle, and queen b6. Nothing special, we just continue the development and we are still in the opening. And now I found myself in a crossroad and I had to consider a few things. Normally in these openings, white would like to play on the king side after, for example, f4, playing f5 after that or something. But also this knight is a bit annoying here, so I was thinking about knight g3 first, then maybe f4 after that. But also I was worried a bit about knight e5, because after knight e5 he will exchange my bishop pair, so I had to consider a3 too. So I had many options here, and that's going to be one of the topic for us. Because if you find yourself in a given position, you have to think in candidate moves. Candidate moves means that you have to find at least 3, maximum 5 moves that serves your plan. These are going to be the candidates, and after that you choose your candidate moves, you have to start to calculate with all of them and decide that which one you would like to play. But there is a very important thing that you have to note, that in a given position, most of the time, there is not only one good move, probably there are more. And choosing the one from the, for example, 2 or 3 or 4 option from 4 good moves, choosing the one, it really depends on the situation and really depends on the playing style. So don't worry, most of the time there is not only just one good move. Normally there are more than one. But how can you choose the right candidates? That's going to be our next question. One of the world champions said, I think it was Lasker who said, that if you see a good move, try to find a better one, and that's very correct, because if you find a good move, then maybe you stop thinking and you stop calculating, and you could miss a better option. So that's why we choose 3 candidates. Normally I choose 3, and after that I start to calculate with all of them. And in this case, I'm pretty sure I can choose the best option for me. So here I was thinking about f4. Of course, it could make sense. I start the attack on the king side. I was thinking about a3 with the plan that after knight a5 I can come back to a2 with my bishop and I can save my bishop pair. And my decision was knight g3. I wasn't worried about knight a5 because knight a5 happened in the game. Bishop b3, he exchanged. I took it back, and yes, I know that I could activate my rook on a1. I know that we would like to play, white would like to play on the king side, and the a line is of course not on the king side, but I was happy with that, because after bishop d2 or even queen e1, which is a very typical plan in this position, maybe one time I can play rook e5 and I can drop the rook to the other side. I'm not sure, but that was in my mind. And now let's talk about the position analysis, the position evaluation, because that's going to be the tool to find the right candidates. My opponent played h5 in this position, and that was absolutely horrible. But why is that? Let's see this position here. I take these arrows and it's going to be more clear now. So let's evaluate this position. If you check the position analysis tool, then you can find many material on the internet. But I would like to show you my thinking method. If I analyze the position, first of all, I would like to understand who stands better. How can I do that? First of all, I count the material. Who has the advantage in material? If we check this position, the material is even. The second thing is the pawn structure. Who has the better pawn structure here? White has 1 pawn island, black has 2 pawn islands, so that could be a bit of advantage for white, but at the same time, white has a backward pawn on c2. Both sides has a double pawn, so at the end of the day, I would say that the pawn structure is more or less even also. Okay, so let's get to the third aspect of the analysis, and that's the space. Probably this is the hardest one to consider. The space is like, if you would like to understand who has the better space, you have to try to check the center first, who owns the center, who has more pieces in the center, and who has more air breath to their pieces to move on. And I think the space is more or less even also. And the fourth aspect of the position analysis is the king's position. Whose king is in more safe. You could say that white already castled, so probably white has a king's position advantage, but that wouldn't be true because the kings in the middle are totally fine until the center is closed. So the king on e8 is totally okay until the center is closed. But in the other hand, if black wants, he could castle, and that would be absolutely fine. So of these four aspects, we can understand that position is more or less even. The material is even, the space is even, the power structure is even, and the king's position is even. So why is it important for us? It's important for us because if we are not in a big disadvantage, then we can continue the game in a normal classical way. We can use the normal principles, we can play normally. If we have a big disadvantage, then in this case we cannot play normally because in the long-term run we will lose the game for sure. So if we have a big disadvantage, we have to take risk. We have to try to find dynamic play, dynamic chances, practical chances, and maybe we can turn the board. But in this case, in this situation, what we see here, the position is even. And if the position is even, if you do not have a big disadvantage, then you shouldn't take any unnecessary risk. And h5 was that. It's like I understood his plan. He wanted to open up the age line, and that could be dangerous for white. I'm not sure. He said, okay, I give a h pawn, it's not important for me, and at least I can open up the age line and I will have some threat on the king side. But that's not true, because if white can 8 this pawn, then after that white will have the material advantage. And what if we have the material advantage? Then we have the positional advantage. That means we stands better, then white will have a better position. So if it's not necessary, if you are not in a big disadvantage, then you shouldn't take any risk, then you shouldn't sacrifice pieces because it's not necessary. Normally, black could make a single castle, and after that the position is even. It's like we can continue in a normal way, and we will see who wins. And one more thing that I had to mention, when you choose the candidates, before that you have to analyze the position, and that's the reason why. Because if the position is favorable for you, or if the position is even, then the candidate moves can be very normal moves. You can use the normal well-known principles. But if you have the disadvantage, the candidate moves has to serve the more risky plans even. So the candidate is going to be very different if you have an advantage or if you have a disadvantage. And also after that you did that in the position analysis, then you have to consider where you want to play at, and where you have to play, where you are strong. So white probably is strong at the king side. That means white wants to play at the king side. White has to play on the king side. So after that, we are not going to consider candidate moves that helps your plan, that helps your play on the queen side, because we are not strong at the queen side. We are strong at the king side. So we have to play there. That means we have to find candidates that serve this plan to serve the king side attack. So after all, h5 was a very bad move, and it's going to be very simple. If your opponent sacrifices a piece, then you have to consider one thing. If you eat that piece, will you be able to protect yourself after that? Can you activate your pieces? Can you protect your king after that? Can you continue your development after that? And if the answer is yes, then you can go and eat that sacrifice. And to be honest, I didn't see the compensation for the sacrifice material, so I went for that and I accepted the pawn. G6 happened, knight G3, and of course for a human eye it could be okay that at least he has a very active rook on H8. And maybe it could be tricky in a blitz game, I'm not sure, but in an OTB game, in a classical game, it's not enough. And yes, I will tell you one more important thing very soon. D6 happened in the game. Bishop D2, very natural. We have to continue the development. Bishop D7 and C4. We prepared c4 because, as I said before, white had a backward pawn, and that backward pawn made the pawn structure even in this position. But now both sides will have double pawns, but white has only one pawn island, black has two pawn islands. Now we do not have the backward pawn anymore. So white now has a very slightly pawn structural advantage, and at the same time we have a material advantage. So from 4 aspects, 2 of them favors for white. E5, and sorry, one more thing, that we started to get some more space. E5, F4, we are fighting for the space, and here we will understand one important thing. He went for the exchange. We took it back, and only 6 moves happened. And let's evaluate the position once again quickly, because 6 moves before the position analysis said the position is even. Let's see it once again quickly. Material. White has a material advantage. Pawn structure. White has a better pawn structure because we have 2 pawn islands, black has 3 pawn islands. We have a double pawn, but black has a double isolated pawn. So it also favors for white. Let's talk about the king's position. The king's position favors for white in this case. Why? Because the king on E8 is not safe anymore, because the center is more opened up. So it's going to be a bit difficult to keep the king in the middle. But where can he castle? It's also could be a problem. So I think the king's position is also favors for white. And let's talk about the space. Now I think white controls the center. White has more space. White has more air to move with the pieces. So in all of these four aspects, favors for white. So I can say that the position is totally lost for black. You can imagine there is no checkmate soon or something like that, but on this positional scale, black is already totally lost. And that's what I always teach to my students, that the main goal of the chess, of course, is winning the game, is giving a checkmate. But how can you get this final goal? You have to have sub-goals. And what are the sub-goals? The sub-goals are the positional advantages, the pawn structural advantage, the material advantage, the space advantage, and the king's position advantage. You have to try to fight for these advantages, because if you get these advantages, then you will win the game later on. F6. Now black wants to do something with g5, and after g5 I have to leave the h2 b8 diagonal with my bishop, so the h2 pawn could be a weakness, I'm not sure, but I wanted to prevent everything. Knight e2, and now if he plays g5, I can go back to g3. If you have a big advantage like that, if you have a big positional advantage like that, you have to try to be as safe as possible. You have to protect everything. You have to coordinate your pieces well. You do not. The most important thing is that you cannot rush with the win. You have to be very slow. You have to be patient. You have to develop with your pieces. You have to protect everything, and most importantly, you have to kill all of the opponent's counterplay chances. Like it was like the g5. Probably if he managed to play the g5, and I have to leave this h2 b8 diagonal, probably it's still nothing. But I didn't want to leave my h2 pawn unprotected, so I leave him without any compensation. I leave him without any counterplay chances. Bishop g4, rook f2, rook h5, h3, exchange. And of course, there is a well-known golden rule: exchange when you have a material advantage. Every exchange brings white closer to the victory. King f7, rook f2, a6, queen f3. As you can see, all of our pieces comes into the attack. We are not in a rush. We are slowly improving our pieces. Rook h8, rook f1, the last piece joins to the battle also. Queen b3, and this is the last moment of this game, which is interesting and we can learn from. The knight b3 taking the pawn loses immediately, because white will have some we can call it combination. White will have some combination chances here, so the queen b3 is loses, but it's not a bad move. Why isn't it a bad move if it is loses? Because here black is already totally lost. He has zero chances to come back into the game if he plays normally. He has to take risk. He has nothing to lose anymore, so he can take as much risk as he wants. There is nothing to lose anymore. And maybe, if he takes that pawn, and maybe if white miscalculates something with the combination, that he can come back into the game. So he had to try. Maybe nobody knows. Maybe white screw up something with the combination, and black can change the outcome of the game. But if he doesn't take risk like that, then we can understand that he will lose the game very soon. Of course, or not of course, but I had some luck also with the calculation, and also I had some time to think about, so it wasn't a blitz game. and I could manage to finish the game. Bishop d6, of course, is not a big deal. It's untouchable because if he takes, then queen f6, and in the worst case scenario, I can take back the d6. Bishop d8 happened, but that was the thing that I had to calculate. Queen a4, e5, f5, and I wasn't sure about this position when I sacrificed the b3, but I understand it has to work somehow. e6, king e6, queen g6, king d7, rook f5, rook f5, queen f5, check, king d6, and queen d5. And black had to resign because he can go to c7 or e7 with the king, but in both cases we can just play rook f7 check, but in the worst case we can give a check from e5 and take the rook in the corner, and we will have a huge material advantage. So that was it. I hope the new video was useful for you. I think this is one of the most important tools that the chess player has to know, and I hope it was clear enough to understand. See you soon. Have a good one.